yesterday, today, tomorrow. My name is Mariana Cordier, and I am your host. I am coming to you via Zoom from my home. The United States has just completed the census, and the information is being processed. Initially, the data is showing that there has been a change or shift in demographics. Joining me today to discuss is Gabe Albornoz. He's our council member for Montgomery County Council and currently the vice president. We also have Natali Fani-Gonzalez, a commissioner of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and a member of the Montgomery County Planning Board. And interesting, Natali, congratulations, is the first Latinx and millennial to serve on the board. We are also joined by Gloria Aparicio Blackwell. She's the Director of Office of Community Engagement for the University of Maryland at College Park. And best yet, she is one of our producers for the show. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. This is such an interesting time. I'll start with Gloria because she was the census person. And so what is it about the census that now we know specific information about the demographics?
Well, as you know, Mariana, thank you for doing this because they are right now wrapping up all the data and making sure the people were counted and how's that going to look like. And it's looking like, yes, there's a lot of shift in demographic and it's increasing. And it's not something that was a few years ago. It's coming from a long time coming. And now we're to the point that we might need to pay more attention and what that means for the region, for the county, for the state, and for the nation. So I think that is moving ahead. Montgomery County is not exempt for the shift in demographic, in particular with the Latino community in leading the efforts, as well as the Asian community. Of course, we have African Americans, but those numbers, those two communities are coming to be increasing around the area. And which was more importantly, the foreign born were increasing. I'm one of them. So I'm part of that equation. But I think that is important to pay attention. Just more about the implications and the opportunities that brings for us to be a better community for all.
And so, you know, it's funny because this show really is looking at, we didn't do it on purpose, but it looks like a Latino show because all of us are Latinos. But I wanted to go to our council member, Gabriel Albornoz, who does such great work, is now the vice president of the council. That's great. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Mariana. I stand on the shoulders of some pretty remarkable people like Nancy Navarro, and it's such an honor to serve with all three of you. Natali Fani-Gonzalez and I go way back, and so does Gloria Aparicio and I. And so it's just been so humbling and beautiful to see all of us grow as a community in so many different ways.
So when we talk about shifting demographics, how do you see that impacting Montgomery County and the work of the council?
On every level. Whether it's through policy to help ensure that we have linguistically and culturally appropriate programs and services, when it comes to equity, to ensure that we're not just seeking the feedback of our county residents who may be from a different community or country or culture, but they're at the table as decisions are made, so that on the front end, they are part of this beautiful tapestry and that they have the political poder to make sure that they will advance their concerns, which are the same concerns as all of us. We all want economic development. We all want the best education system imaginable. We all want to feel safe and to have the best healthcare system that we can find. And so there's so many common interests that cut across the board. What I think also makes our community so unique is that we're very young. When you look demographically as a whole, and that has significant implications for our overall economic development and presents tremendous opportunities, because in a global economy, when you have such a high percentage of our residents that speak English and a second or sometimes even a third language, it will help entice businesses, it will help improve us culturally, and it will just reinforce the message, which is why all of our families came here not that long ago, that this is a special place, a welcoming place for everyone.
Very well said, and I agree. But Natali, you're on a planning board, which means you guys are planning. So talk to me about what have you noticed being, through your work in the planning board and being a Latinx on that board. What's that like?
I'm going to say that I am very upfront. So when I joined the planning board back in 2014, I knew that I wanted to make a change to make sure that people who you will not usually see in planning board sessions and public hearings will come and see it. So I took the planning board to the streets. I went on buses with the camera crew, a videographer, to interview people on how we could make the community better. And surprisingly, I was looking at the faces of planners who have been there for many, many years. Their first time hearing from Spanish speakers tell their stories. And I was just looking at their faces because people were saying the same thing that other communities were saying. We want safe streets. We want to walk to parks. We want to have access to jobs. We want to take public transportation, but it must be reliable. They were just saying it in a different language.
Right.
So it's just seeing that transformation, not only like through the staff, like seeing this new demographic creating an impact, it has been mind-blowing. I also have been doing a lot of Spanish-speaking town halls. I did one with a planning director a few months ago on Thrive Montgomery, which is the general plan that we're working on. How do we see ourselves in the next 30 years? And the comments and the questions from the Spanish-speaking community from Germantown, Gettysburg, Bullsville, okay? Tacoma Park, Wheaton, where I live. It was all about the same things that you hear other communities talk about, and the fact that my community, the Latino community, the immigrant community, because I came here when I was 16 years old, is having that voice being heard and being part of this planning process, to me, something that I'm very proud of. And I feel like once I leave the planning board one day, because we're term limited, I just need to make sure that whoever replaces me continues that.
Well, and so aside from the hard work and the difficulty of making sure that everyone is considered and heard, have you noticed any changes or shifts in the demographics?
Oh, yes, especially now that people are learning more about the planning board. I see more Latinos coming in and African Americans coming in, testifying, younger people too. Very important to emphasize. I see high schoolers. I'm usually asked to speak in front of high school classes and about planning and getting them motivated to speak in front of the planning board. That's happening, and it makes a huge impact on policymakers. Because sometimes, what you're hearing from the elderly community is not what you hear from the young people. So getting more young people to talk about the issues that matter to them, I think it leads to, better policy decisions because you're including more people.
Well, so talking about policy, Gabe, have you seen in the shift in the demographics, more participation from different communities, or is it the same players always that participate, with the council and with the policy making?
So, well, like Natali, we've seen a shift too on the council. And I, once again, have to give a lot of credit to Councilmember Nancy Navarro, who had the foresight years ago to establish a civic advocacy academy. And it's now, several years into its creation, and it has created a new generation of people, particularly in the Wheaton area and within her districts, that are coming out. And the efforts of Natali have been nothing short of heroic to really go out in the community. And those speaking engagements that she's referring to in high schools, I try to do as many of those as I can, because I know that she and I are both planting seeds every time that we go, because when these students see decision makers that look like them, that have very similar backgrounds and can relate on both the cultural and emotional level, it makes it more likely for them to be able to open their eyes to what else is out there. The other thing that I think has been a game changer has been technology. We've had a record number of people testify this last year because now you can do it from your home. You don't have to go to Rockville. You don't have to go to Silver Spring or now Wheaton. You can do it from the comforts of your own home. The council has done a much better job, and I know the planning board has as well, of hiring interpreters, but not just like your off the street interpreter, like really good interpreters who know what they're doing and understand the essence and are respectful and patient and kind and thoughtful in the way that they're translating a lot of the work of these residents. And that has very important policy ramifications, because we often, as policymakers, tend to only hear the voice of a few. It's the squeaky wheels. It's the folks that understand the bureaucracy, understand the system, understand how to manipulate the system. And not nefariously, they do it with the best of intentions. But if you don't know how that game works and you're not part of it, then you can be consumed by it. And so it's our obligation to go out and be proactive, as Natali has done, as Nancy has done, as I'm trying to do through our offices.
Gloria, you do a lot of community engagement. In fact, you're the director of community engagement for University of Maryland at College Park. And, reaching out so that people can feel like they can participate, because I mean, culturally also there's that challenge that, government is scary. It's not, it's, if you grow up here, you don't know what scary government is unless you think back to January 6th. But how do you overcome that? What is your experience with really getting the young and the immigrant and all the other, cultures that are in our communities to be engaged?
Listen, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with Gabe and with Natali, our Councilmember Albornoz, and our vice chairs here, Natali Fani. What I'm going to tell, it is true. It's going out. It's talking to people. There are sometimes people want to be advocates, but they don't know how. They don't know what to do, what to ask. I think the purpose of us is to empower them, giving them the tools, being out and getting higher education, community colleges, in my case, the university, going out and I'm working in the community, working with those amazing nonprofit organizations that are building the next generations, and they are empowering, but sometimes they don't know where to reach, what to do, and what kind of concept or ideas I need to present. The community, sometimes the immigrant community, hey, I just need food to eat. I don't know what to think about what was going to be my next meal. But if we start covering that plus, and then you also can advocate for those basic services, for those basic needs, here's another way you can do it. So I think for us, it's more about kind of sharing with them what techniques, what ideas they can bring up front, introducing the individuals coming. The elected officials want to be out there, but they don't know where sometimes. Sometimes the time is so consuming. If you make it easy, they will come and they will listen. When you have a group of people that that these people are coming to listen and do something about it, that's what you gain trust. And that's what you get to those communities to say, I have somebody that is going to support me. And I know when I talk, they're going to listen to what issues we bring to the table. They want education. They want, like Natali said, they want parks. They want a safer street. Everyone wants that. And why we cannot bring that to those communities that perhaps we feel, they don't care about their community. They do care about their community, but they don't have access to the resources that they should be getting.
And Gabe, with regard to the council, with the past election, there's going to be a whole lot of work being done for redistricting and drawing those lines. What is the concerns or the goals of the council with regard to that?
Well, first, Mariana, kudos to you for being part of that group. I think your voice is going to be extremely important, and all of us are going to sleep a little better at night knowing you're in that room as these critically important decisions are made. And Gloria brought up a lot of really good points, and her connection to higher education is so critical and is so important. And the University of Maryland did something really smart a long time ago, which was empower her to be her. So she is a force of nature in her own right. And I just have such respect for her work. And I think that, as we identify these emerging leaders across the county, having 2 new council members provides a tremendous opportunity. Because of term limits, we already knew we were going to have at least 3 new council members, and now there will be 2 more on top of that. And we're not sure exactly how these districts will be drawn, but when I ran for office 2 years ago, there were 33 candidates in my primary race. And so what happened, and I think I would have done this anyways, but as part of the strategy, all of the folks in that race had to knock on doors that you traditionally wouldn't knock on. Because typically what happens in a race, particularly at large through the whole county, is you can't knock on every door. And so you concentrate on the people who are the most likely to vote again, the folks that have voted in 2, 3, 4 straight elections. But I think what I saw this time around is there are so many people that voted for the first time. My favorite story of this last election cycle occurred on election day. I was at the Germantown election site, and it was the coolest thing. There was a mother and a father, both from El Salvador. The father had become a United States citizen 3 years ago, the mother 2 years ago. They had 2 daughters. One was a sophomore at Montgomery College, and a younger daughter that was a senior at Seneca Valley High School. All four of them were voting as a family for the first time.
That's
And
amazing. That is a really cool story, because that really, gives you hope, right?
Yeah.
That, more people may become more engaged.
Yes. And so I think the work of the districts should focus on ensuring inclusion in every way imaginable. But I think that, Montgomery County is so rich now that we're minorities everywhere. And so we're no longer minority. In fact, we're majority now. So I think that, that's going to play itself out through the process. And I'm confident that we just have so much more to work with. And you mentioned the previous administration. It's hard not to have a conversation without mentioning them. But I think what we're going to see is we had record turnout during the presidential election cycle. 2 years before that, we had record turnout during the gubernatorial election cycle. I think there's momentum, and I think we can build off of it.
And with that,
Gloria, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, because Gabe has mentioned something very critical here. Yes, we got momentum with last election, not only for the voting, but also to be completing the census. As you know, the people were a lot of apathy about that. Oh, they didn't know. They didn't know about the process. Now we do. Now we gave them all the knowledge. And we're going, as a matter of fact, my new work is going to be now, what are we doing with these numbers? What those numbers mean? Because sometimes people don't know. So civic engagement in the classroom is going to be critical. We cannot maintain this election process of getting people involved in electing in a voting process if we don't have another Trump again. We don't have this individual. People went out because what the administration that we had before. So if we don't have those individuals, we don't know if we're going to be losing that. The apathy is going to come back again. So having civic engagement in the classroom is going to be critical for people to understand why it's important to vote and why it's important to complete the census and be involved in the community. Because if not, we're going to be going back at the same way that we were before, and that's what we don't want. So I think higher education, K through 12, community college has a big role to play in maintaining this civic engagement for all.
And Natali, what do you think about that? Because you seem to be the pro at pulling in, a participation at the planning board, which isn't exactly the sexiest board, but you get them, to participate, to be there.
You know what? I loved, and I cannot wait to get the data from the census, because for planners, we depend on that data for everything. How many people are living in certain communities? How much money do we need from Gabe and the rest of his colleagues to give to the Park and Planning Commission so we can create more parks? For example, density, how many people live in certain areas? How much, how many more houses do we need in the area, especially near transit? All that information is key, and it's so crucial to have people engaged so they can also ask, not just the county council, but also the state and the federal government to give us all the resources that we need to make sure communities have quality of life. They have enough housing, they have reliable transportation, that they have sidewalks. All that costs money. So
Do you think that we'll be able to keep the momentum of the community engagement, or what are the things that we need to do to maintain?
I think we, especially people who are in position of powers, we need to make sure that it is up to us to keep the momentum, to create opportunities for people to remain engaged. So with the planning board, the general plan is a key, huge issue that, we're about to finish it at the end of this month, but then it goes to the county council, ensuring that communities continue to stress to the council the need to upgrade and update our plans. Why? Because if we really believe in climate change, and this is just one example, we need to rely more on transit, which means we need more money for BRT, which means we need more money for parks. So it's in order for us to get that, people need to be engaged and advocate for those needs. So opportunities are always gonna come, and it's up to us to make sure our communities are involved.
So Gabe, you have a lot of experience with parks and recreation from your prior position. Sometimes you hear people say, well, how much do we really need to spend on parks and recreation? How important is that? Before the pandemic, it was a bigger question than now, I imagine, but how important is it? How would you explain it?
Well, Natali will be happy to know. Next time I'll bring my checkbook so I can write a check out to Park and Planning, because you can't invest enough in the work that they do, truly. That's just one of 9 council members.
Besides community colleges.
That's right.
Besides community college.
But I digress. But it is critically important. So there was a community, back when the county did really comprehensive community survey assessments, not from a planning perspective, but from like a government operations perspective, consistently in the top 3 every year, the thing that county residents were most proud of and the reason why they had chosen to live in Montgomery County, parks and recreation were always among the top 3. Education was number 1. Our school system was always number 1. And safety and security was number 2. But the third was always parks and recreation. And so these are amenities, particularly now that we have grown to appreciate even more during the pandemic, that connects us to our natural environments. And connecting a couple of dots, particularly for our immigrant communities, it helps take people out of the situations that they're in. And if you squint your eyes as you walk through some of our gorgeous parks, particularly Wheaton Regional, you could be anywhere around the world, and it reminds you of home in a lot of ways. And our Parks Department does a phenomenal job of upkeep, of ensuring that the parks meet world-class standards. And they have been the standard bearers across the country for years, decades now, as the #1 Parks Department, receiving a gold star. Literally, it's called a gold star across the entire country. And our recreation department, I'm proud to say, has kept pace between our aquatic facilities, our recreation centers, our senior centers, which is still the fastest growing demographic in Montgomery County. It not only creates a sense of place, which is so important, it not only improves the quality of life, which is also important, but frankly, it also connects to economic development, because people move where there are these kinds of amenities available to them, and it's what separates us from a lot of other jurisdictions. And so it's an area that we need to triple down on and try to hold the line during these challenging fiscal times, because the Parks and Recreation Department are often on the wrong end of the sliding scale as we make budget cuts. But we got to hold the line. These aren't nice to haves, these are must haves.
Well, and I think that with the pandemic, it has emphasized even more, particularly for those who don't have the luxury of living in a home and are in a single family house. They're in an apartment complex, and just being able to walk outside and breathe is key. I mean, Natali, what do you say to that?
What's been very amazing? We have closed some of the streets in Montgomery County, the ones that are actually like Beach Drive, for example, if you're in Kensington, the ones that we can control in the Parks Department and Parking Planning. The amount of people who are out on the street, even people on their wheelchair, like people of all abilities, you see them outside on weekends because they want to be out. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. It's good for everybody. So that just shows you how important and critical our parks are in being outside. You know, as Councilmember Albornoz was saying, it's just not only to be nice, but it's also an economic point that we always stress out. And developers, when they come to Montgomery County, they're looking for those green areas, green spaces. Where can I put my new mixed use development that is near a park so my residents can walk there? They know there is money behind that too. So in every single angle you see these, it's a win-win situation, and our residents know that.
Okay, and so we've got just about a minute left, so I'll give Gloria the last word. You got a minute. What do you want the audience to know or come away with regarding these demographics that have changed and shifted?
Listen, that makes us a very strong community. The more diverse we are, the more things that we can bring different to our community. So here we have outstanding leaders that are ready for you to come with ideas to what is it that will work for you. And they are here ready to provide those resources. I know they are few, far in between, but I know they're going to be investing in parks. They're going to be investing in education. And of course, healthcare is critical. And for our third generation, is that what is it called? The senior citizens, and I don't know how they call it. We call it la tercera edad, but that sounds better than senior citizen. But that group also is critical. All of us, right, they are critical. But for us, the investment is here. And I know we have progressive leaders that they're going to make those happen.
Awesome. Good way to put it. So unfortunately, every single time I say this, we have run out of time. It was a great conversation. I hope you guys will join me in the future, but thank you so much for being my guest on the show, the audience for watching. This is Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and you can watch us on the cable channel. I'm Mariana Cordier. Until next time.